Tonight, no deal. Nurses and midwives reject the latest pay offer from the Scottish Government. Unions are planning industrial action.
We can't look after our patients properly, some of us can't feed our families properly. It's just got to a point where it is enough and we're standing up for not only ourselves but our patients as well.
Also on the programme, we're live from Holyrood as MSPs continue debating gender reforms. How Scottish baby boxes are heading to Ukraine to help people there at Christmas.
In sport, after Rangers' dramatic win over Aberdeen, Celtic will look to restore a 9-point advantage when they face Livingston tonight.
Well, how you doing?
And an early visit for Santa at Glasgow's Children's Hospital. I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Nurses in Scotland are planning to strike after rejecting the latest pay offer from the Scottish Government. Members of the Royal College of Nursing overwhelmingly voted against an average pay increase of 7.5%.
The union says it will announce dates for industrial action early next year. The Royal College of Midwives has also rejected the offer. Our political correspondent Ewan Petrie reports.
Nurses in the rest of the UK have already walked out twice this month. So far, strikes have been avoided here. But that could change. The Royal College of Nursing has rejected the latest pay offer from the Scottish Government. 82% of members who took part in the ballot voted down the deal.
Nurses are absolutely fed up. The NHS has run on our goodwill for far too long, and at this point it's enough. You know, we can't look after our patients properly, some of us can't feed our families properly. It's just got to a point where it is enough and we're standing up for not only ourselves but our patients as well at this point.
Unison and Unite have both accepted the latest offer, which would see an average pay increase of 7.5%. But the GMB union, which represents ambulance workers, has also rejected the deal. The Royal College of Nursing is planning to announce dates for walkouts in the new year, unless the Scottish Government comes up with a new offer.
If they come back into the room and really listen to our members and really speak to us in a meaningful way and put together an offer that will value our nursing staff, that will ensure safe staff and recruitment, retention and ultimately investment in the workforce, there is an opportunity to do that. But if they can't come and do that, then we will continue with our plans for industrial action, and yes, strike dates will be announced in January.
Midwives have also rejected the pay offer. Almost 2/3 said it was simply not good enough, despite the union recommending members accept.
We are hearing that we have members that are calling in sick to work because they can't afford to travel to work. You know, they need to be able to feed themselves and their families, they need to pay for their heating bills. So again, you know, it's the money in the pocket that's important to them. So we aren't surprised.
Before the results were known, the Health Secretary said he will keep the dialogue going with unions.
I truly believe both the RCN and the GMB, when they say they don't want to go on strike, maybe I'll be prepared to do so, but they don't want to go on strike. And let's work together to see how we make sure that doesn't happen.
Hamza Youssef was not available for reaction after the result. He's due to sit down with unions tomorrow in the hope of avoiding strikes here.
So, Ewan, how likely is it we're going to see NHS workers going on strike here?
Well, the Royal College of Nursing hasn't taken industrial action in 106 years, so the mere fact that there's such a high percentage of them backing strikes now really shows the strength of feeling among its members. The RCN is one of 9 health unions sitting down with the Scottish Government tomorrow as part of this block negotiation over pay. Now, some of those unions have rejected the deal, but others have accepted it. Other major health unions, such as Unison. So although nurses and midwives took a big step towards strike action today, it's by no means guaranteed that it will actually happen. You know, ultimately, It's down to individual unions after these talks to decide how best to act on behalf of their members. But thousands of workers today sent a very clear message that they are prepared to take strike action to get a better deal, and they believe the ball is now very much firmly in the Scottish Government's court.
Ewan, thank you.
Now, after debate stretched beyond midnight last night and protesters interrupting from the public gallery, MSPs are continuing a marathon vote on amendments to the controversial Gender Recognition Reform Bill. It aims to streamline and demedicalise how trans people can legally change their gender, but it's come under fierce criticism from some women's groups who say it threatens single-sex spaces.
The bill is expected to pass, but in what could be the longest ever sitting at Holyrood, the big question is when? Well, our political editor Colin Mackay is at Holyrood for us tonight.
Well, it's the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, but it's not going to feel like that to the MSPs debating the Gender Recognition Reform Bill. What was supposed to last for 3 hours yesterday took more than 8 hours to get through, and they're nowhere near finished. Right now, they were supposed to be passing the final vote on this legislation. They're nowhere near that. It's going to go on till at least midnight. It could even go into tomorrow, I'm hearing. Now, as trans people wait to hear and cheer what they expect as the outcome of increasing their human rights, we've had women outside protesting because they fear that this will diminish their rights. Our political reporter Laura Alderman has been speaking to both sides.
On her 40th birthday and after years of reflection, Heather began transitioning. But she says her current legal gender doesn't reflect who she is and is hoping a new bill on the cusp of becoming law will help her to change this.
Although the bill, the thing itself is just a small admin thing, it symbolises a lot more. It symbolises how progressive Scotland is. I think the next steps we have really is healthcare. We've got huge waiting lists for trans healthcare. I know people who have waited for 7 years in Glasgow for just a first appointment with a gender identity clinic.
Trans people are under attack!
The proposed Gender Recognition Reform Bill aims to simplify and accelerate the process for people to obtain a gender recognition certificate and therefore change their legal gender. It will remove the requirement for a diagnosis of gender dysphoria and cut the time a person needs to live in their gender from 2 years to 3 months. MSPs began considering more than 150 amendments to the bill at Holyrood yesterday.
Already debate.
At one point, the debate was interrupted by protesters in the public gallery. Only when the chamber lights went out shortly after midnight did MSPs call it a day. Opponents of the bill gathered outside Holyrood this afternoon, just before the debate resumed. They say the bill will infringe on single-sex spaces and pose a danger to women and girls.
This process does not improve the process only for trans people. It makes the process open to everyone, including abusive men. People who have concerns about the legislation are often afraid to speak out. Look what happened to me. When I spoke out, I lost my front bench position in the SNP and I received rape and death threats, which have yet to be condemned by anyone in a leadership position in my party.
It's taken years of fraught and often contentious debate to get to this point. Although the arguments continue out here today, ultimately the final decision will be made in the Scottish Parliament.
Will the Cabinet Secretary confirm that someone who is issued with a GRC would have access to single-sex spaces? Can we just have a very clear answer about the implications?
Cabinet Secretary.
Not if the organisation providing those services used the exceptions under the 2010 Act. They could be excluded. As I have said so many times in this chamber, nothing changes.
Do you think women will be more or less safe as a result of this law? And if you have any doubt at all, that it will make women and girls less safe, then you cannot vote for it.
Although the bill is likely to pass, arguments on both sides of this debate will rage on, with potential legal challenges to follow. Laura Alderman, STV News at the Scottish Parliament.
And MSPs are debating the key amendments on those single-sex spaces and services right now. They are probably the most contentious parts of this bill, particularly for the women who you saw protesting outside the Parliament now, who feel that their rights are going to be diminished. The Social Justice Secretary is not accepting any opposition amendments on this. She says that that could potentially put the whole bill at risk. Now, Ash Regan, who you saw in Laura's report there, is the minister who quit the SNP government over this. She says that what's happening is the Parliament is in danger of passing bad legislation and putting women at risk in general. What we're looking at just now is this running into tomorrow. That's when we could get to the final debate, the final vote on this. But there is no doubt about what will happen in that final vote. MSPs, because there's a majority in this Parliament for it, MSPs will back the Gender Recognition Reform Bill.
Colin, at the Scottish Parliament, thank you. Ukrainian refugees living in Scotland are helping pack lorry loads full of donations to send back home for Christmas. The Scott Baby Box appeal has been providing aid since the start of the Russian invasion, and demand is as high as ever.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Zelensky is meeting US President Biden at the White House later as the country looks for more military and economic support. Selina Jackson reports.
So we've got the blankets, sleeping bag, nappies.
Parents in Scotland will be well acquainted with the traditional baby box, but these ones are quite different. They've been donated to send vital supplies to displaced families in Ukraine.
A lot of those boxes we're making this time are going to Kherson. So we're quite proud of that, the fact they're getting into Kherson. They flew a Scottish flag in Kherson last week because we sent some aid down previously.
This charity, now based in Coatbridge, has been working tirelessly for the last 10 months, getting help to those most in need.
Christmas may be fast approaching, but with Ukrainians facing a perishing winter and continuing power outages, the focus in these boxes isn't on gifts, rather on blankets and warm snowsuits.
And now a group of women who fled the country earlier this year are giving up their own time to help.
I'm from Kiev. It's very hard time because not water, not light. Electric.
For many of the families living here, the boxes are a way to feel connected to home.
A mum, it's actually turned out she was a refugee mum who is living in Doon. The family that was hosting this lady had actually built 2 baby boxes, and the mum used the rest of her Ukrainian money she had, and she put that in for the mum with the letters, each letter, just basically wishing the mum all the best, and it gets you every time.
It certainly won't be the Christmas they were hoping for, but their work here will be invaluable to friends and relatives back in Ukraine. Selina Jackson, STV News.
Former patients harmed by a disgraced Dundee doctor have protested outside Ninewells Hospital. Professor Sam El-Jamel was suspended as head of neurosurgery in 2013 after carrying out countless botched operations.
40 patients left with life-changing injuries are now demanding a public inquiry. Lynn Rankin reports.
Why? We've been let down! We're in constant pain!
Making their voices heard outside the hospital where they were harmed. Some can no longer walk, others are in constant pain. All have been left with life-changing injuries.
He opened me up and closed me back up again and didn't actually do anything, so that's why I was left in pain for so long. He took away my life. I'm being paralysed, end of. He operated 7 times. I had another 4 spine operations to try and do something about it, but they can't.
My niece has had 20 odd years of her life being ruined. Her daughters have suffered because of that, her family suffered. Every step she takes is agony.
It does affect all activities of daily living.
And this is the man responsible. Professor Sam El-Jamel was head of neurosurgery at Ninewells Hospital. When we filmed him in 2011, the health board were already aware of complaints.
When I woke up from the second operation, I was blind in my right eye and partially blind in my left eye. And I've been like that ever since.
John Blackwood had a brain tumour. He was operated on 3 times by El-Jamel, damaging his optic nerves. At the age of 46, John had to give up work.
The whole Ninewells Hospital are responsible for employing somebody like this. I mean, he was just a bandit. And he got away with it under their noses.
El Jamel was placed under investigation and under supervision, but was allowed to continue operating on patients. Jules Rose was one of them.
I was diagnosed with a rare brain tumour, and he operated on me, removed my tear gland instead of the tumour.
El Jamel was suspended the following day. Jules is now leading the fight for a public inquiry.
We want NHS Tayside to be held to account for allowing Professor El Jamel to butcher all these patients. NHS Tayside were unaware that this was happening from 1997 to 2013. It just demonstrates there was a severe lack of clinical governance and a severe lack of management.
A damning Scottish Government report found that NHS Tayside repeatedly let patients down, but Health Secretary Humza Yousaf has rejected a public inquiry. El Jamel is now thought to be working in Libya. The 40 patients have been offered a meeting with the Health Board. They hope it gives them answers. And while their suffering won't stop, they'll continue campaigning for justice. Lynn Rankin, STV News.
Other stories across Scotland, and the A85 between Tyndrum and Oban has reopened following a landslide earlier in the week. The road was closed for 2 days due to debris across both carriageways. The main train line to Oban and Mallaig remains closed, however, beyond Crianlarich, as repairs to the track continue.
Train operator TransPennine Express is asking customers not to travel. It says a systems issue is causing major disruption to services. The company, which runs cross-border trains between Scotland and England, has struggled to operate services for several months due to staffing issues.
The man who pioneered Glasgow's famous curry culture has died. Ali Ahmed Aslam opened the Shish Mahal in the West End in 1964, which became one of the city's most popular curry houses, being widely credited as the restaurant that invented chicken tikka masala. Speaking to STV in 2002, Mr. Ali recalled how students were his best customers in the early days of the business.
Quite few students from India and Pakistan, they wanted some place where they can eat, and we started from there. They eat mince and tatties and haggis and all that sort of thing, which was just not spicy, So when the spicy food came, they liked that,
Ali Ahmed Aslam, who's passed away. Now, excited school kids are winding down their time in the classroom and getting ready to finish up for the Christmas holidays. But for pupils at St Albert's Primary in Glasgow's south side, they've had a more difficult year than most, overcoming racial abuse. Vanessa Taff has been to see how they're marking the end of the year.
OK, what do we say to Santa?
Getting into the festive spirit. These pupils at St Albert's Primary have had a tough term. They were the targets of online racist abuse.
We've tried really hard to turn that into quite an empowering experience for our community. Our parent council have been fantastic, really, in making sure that their voices are heard and the voices of our community are heard and our children. It's really important to say that it's not the end of the road for us. This is something that we're really going to be championing. Across St Albert's, we're working with universities on anti-racist education being a crucial part of when you learn to become a teacher at uni.
Some of the kids here have been teaching others about their experiences of racism and learning how to tackle it.
You should always be kind, and if anyone says one of those any mean comments to you, you should say stop, that's not good, you can't say that to someone. And then you go to the nearest sensible adult and tell them that.
Classes talk about it and how to fight it and how to stay calm if you want to rage at the people who's been racist to you.
Learning about racism through books, these books. We have a lot of these, our library is full of these books, and I think other schools should have these books as well.
We've been going on protests and having banners and music and drums, and we did a chant as hey ho, racism has got to go.
With these young people challenging racism and championing love and kindness, this school hopes to make others more aware of their actions and words. Vanessa Taff, STV News, Glasgow.
The sport now with Raman.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sports, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Good evening. Conor Golson says Rangers must take confidence from winning ugly against Aberdeen and admits it's a match they may not have won a few weeks ago. The Ibrox side scored in the 95th and 97th minute to complete a stunning comeback and take all 3 points back to Glasgow. Aberdeen and Rangers matches rarely disappoint, and last night's encounter was no different. With the Ibrox side trailing 2-1, deep in added time, Scott Arfield struck not once but twice to snatch a dramatic win for Michael Beale's side.
I thought they showed 10 out of 10 for character and mentality, especially at the end when obviously I made the 4 subs and asked us just to play a little bit free and gamble a little bit. Delighted, obviously Scotty come up with the 2 goals. Sometimes fortune favours the brave. I would probably say 10 out of 10 for character and mentality and 5 out of 10 for performance. We need to keep improving.
Rangers struck first in the 12th minute. Ryan Jack and Alfredo Morelos combined on the right-hand side to set up Fashion Sakala. The forward's first attempt was a poor one, but he was clinical with his second chance. Aberdeen should have levelled midway through the second half, but Ilber Ramadani failed to hit the target from 12 yards. With half-time approaching, James Sands brought down Bojan Miovski. From the resulting free kick, the Dons made it 1-1. Alan McGregor took a step to his left, and Duke found the back of the net. Early into the second half, Aberdeen scored a second. Leighton Clarkson with a terrific strike. From a goal down, the Dons were now 2-1 up. This prompted Michael Beale to make changes. Wright, Lundstrom, Davis and Arfield came on. The latter was twice denied by Kelly Roos. But Arfield was to have the final say in this match. With 95 minutes on the clock, he made it 2-2. Then, in the 97th minute, he scored the winner. Don's boss Jim Goodwin couldn't believe what he'd just seen.
I've never experienced anything quite like that in my career up to now, and yeah, it's a difficult one to process, to be honest.
At full-time, the emotions of the 2 sets of players couldn't be more contrasting. The Dons dejected, delight for Rangers. So Rangers have cut the gap at the top to 6 points, but Celtic will be looking to restore a 9-point advantage when they face Livingston tonight. Ange Postecoglou's side defeated Livy 3-0 earlier in the season, and they go into this evening's match on the back of a win over Aberdeen.
The thing with Livingston is that you know that kind of irrespective of who they play against, they have a certain style and they stick to it, and it's difficult to play against, which gives them some sort of certainty going into every game. Because if you kind of chop and change every week, it can put players in that little bit of area of uncertainty if things don't go well. But you know, we've played them a few times now. As I said, it's a different challenge at home to away.
Rugby and 2 scrum halves are preparing to go head-to-head for Glasgow and Edinburgh this weekend, knowing they are also competing for a place in Scotland's Six Nations squad. George Horne and Ben Vellacott know each other well from international duty and are ready to square off at Scotstoun on Friday night. Gregor Townsend will keep a keen eye on their performances.
Every game's a kind of trial game. You want to play your best, so it does add a bit of spice to it, going up against the guys that you play with at the national team. So yeah, it gets pretty intense, but everyone's just out there to try and play their best and win.
It's a big season coming up, obviously with the World Cup not too far away, obviously the Six Nations, etc. But at the same time, I've just got to put in some good performances for Edinburgh and try and stay fit when Scotland selections come around. And if that goes my way, then at the end of the day, it's up to one man to decide who he wants as nines.
Finally, tennis, and in the next 10 minutes or so, the Battle of Brits gets underway in Aberdeen. First up for Team Scotland is Aidan McHugh. He faces England's Jack Draper. In the second singles match, it's Andy Murray against Dan Evans. So a good event up there in Aberdeen. That, folks, is all your sport tonight. I'll see you again tomorrow.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sports, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Sean has the weather, and the Christmas picture is getting clearer.
Things are hotting up. TUI sponsors STV weather.
So thank goodness a wee bit more confidence, a little bit more confidence in the forecast for the weekend. So I'll give you a little bit more of a detailed look at that in just a second. For the time being though, still plenty of showers out there through this evening and tonight. So still quite wet at times. Temperatures, because of those showers, staying around 5 to 7 degrees, 3 or 4 degrees in eastern areas. Now tomorrow there still will be some showers around, but they'll be fairly well scattered. Nothing like today, of course. Those showers have merged into longer spells of rain at times. Most of the showers tomorrow are across western, southern parts of Argyll, Arran, mainland Ayrshire, Dumfries and Galloway, perhaps into South Lanarkshire as well, but much of Stirlingshire towards Fife, Falkirk. Here a lot of dry, bright weather tomorrow. Temperatures about 6 or 7 degrees. Today, the first day of winter. Temperatures around average for the time of year after that very cold end to autumn, of course. Now here's what I'm expecting at this stage for the next few days. Friday we'll start to see more clouds, some outbreaks of rain coming into the southwest. Initially, if you'd asked me yesterday, Christmas Day looks as if it was going to be cold, potentially snowy. However, our latest computer models have pushed to much milder air further north. So we will see a spell of rain on Christmas Eve, that milder air coming in from the south. But then on Christmas Day, the possibility of some strong to gale force winds developing across the northwestern parts, across the Hebrides. Lots of showers, potentially turning a bit wintry later on the day. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV weather.
And finally, Christmas came early for children at the Sick Kids Hospital in Glasgow today when Santa came to visit.
That's right, he was allowed back onto the wards for the first time in 3 years, and Polly Bartlett was there for the extra special moments.
Merry Christmas!
Bringing festive cheer and goodwill to the wards. Santa's here doing what he does best.
Ho ho! Jingle bells!
He's travelled all the way from Lapland to sprinkle some Christmas magic after making his list and checking it twice.
Ho 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 ho!
Every one of them is on the nice list. I've got one word that sums it up. Basically, they're fighters. And that's what they all are.
And where's your brother then?
And none more so than brothers Alan and Fraser, whose Christmas wish has come true. They're getting discharged this afternoon in time for the big day.
It was an RTC, and my wife and the 2 children were involved on Thursday night. And we came in and were very well looked after from the minute we came in the door. A lot of the folk, their shift was due to finish at 12 o'clock, and they were still sitting with us at 2:30 in the morning, doing their very best to look after my wife and my children. It's nice to see that there's definitely something there, and the time when you most need it, there's people who will help you.
Christmas here at the Children's Hospital is such an important time of year that preparations for the big day start in January.
Actually having Santa at the patient's bedsides and having that interaction, watching the kids getting to chat to him and have those conversations is just lovely. It's heartwarming for the staff to see that.
That's just made my day. And even as a parent, it's made my day that they're able to do that. It's hearing the joy in the kids and everything. It's just a distraction from what is going on for all the parents and things as well. And I think a distraction for the staff because they're busting a gut too. So it's great, honestly, so fun. I can't stop smiling, it's great.
Like Santa, staff here are no stranger to working around the clock. And it's no different at this time of year. They're pulling out all the stops and hope that Christmas in the hospital will be extra special. Polly Bartlett, STV News in Glasgow.
Oh, an early visit from Santa, just the tonic for those wee ones in hospital.
Great to see all these wee smiles, it really was. From all of us here, thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good night.